LeafFilter.com/rain. That's LeafFilter.com/rain.
As a mom, comforting my family is what I do best. Vicks VapoStick provides soothing, non-medicated Vicks vapors in an easy-to-apply stick. And it dries fast, so there's no mess. I use it to comfort myself and my family.
Thanks, Mom.
Vicks VapoStick, soothing comfort for the whole family. And when you need more comfort for yourself, try Vicks Vapo Shower Max for steamy Vicks vapors. Use as directed. VapoStick for use ages 4 and up. Vapo Shower Max use for adults only.
You're listening to 96.5 The Fan from the Mission Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling Studios. What's trending?
What's trending here on Cody Gold is presented by Baker University, where graduates earn higher salaries and land jobs faster than any other university in Kansas. Applied today at bakeru.edu. Number one on What's Trending. Thank goodness CBS Sports is out there doing the work of the people, because so many people were concerned whether or not the NFL did in fact play a role in scheduling the Chiefs and Bills this weekend in conjunction with Taylor Swift's Eras Tour. CBS Sports reached out to the NFL. CBS Sports got this back. Said, quote, "Yes, it is completely unintentional," a league source said, about the scheduling of the Chiefs while Taylor Swift is also performing in Toronto. This was the weird conspiracy when the schedule went out. Remember that crap? Of course it's a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence. I think it's absolutely true.
No.
No. Yeah. Oh, yeah. The NFL doesn't care about their viewership at all.
She's been in enough games now. It doesn't matter anymore. Like, I don't think that thing was big last year. Now I don't know about you. When she's at a game now, it's like, okay, cool. I expect her to be at a game.
Yeah, I do too. Next up on What's Trending, John Gruden signed a multi-year deal with Barstool Sports to continue their NFL coverage. Signifies to me he ain't ever going to be a head coach. Well, who was that a couple of weeks ago? Somebody on ESPN suggested he become the Jets' next head coach. That's wild.
Was that Rex
Ryan?
Ryan?
Gruden and Rodgers, Woody Johnson all buddied up there in New York. What a disaster that would be.
Next on What's Trending, we now know where the Rays are going to play the 2025 season. Of course, the terrible hurricane conditions following that damaged the roof. It was going to cost $55 million to have it up and running for 2026. So they're going to play at the Yankees Spring Training Complex, Steinbrenner Field, for 2025. The Yankees will actually gain about $15 million in additional revenue this season, of course, because since they need extra money due to the Rays playing their home games at Yankees Spring Training facilities. The Royals do play out in Tampa, of course, in April.
Yeah, that is kind of crazy, though. 11,000-seat stadium. That's still below, technically, their season average. So I guess it'll be a sellout all year long. Nothing but sellouts for Tampa Bay the rest of this year.
$15 million the Yankees are going to make off of this.
I told you, like, I don't like pay for a bunch of sporting events. Obviously, we're lucky enough to get to go through some for work. Big fan of freakazoid things, like one-offs that make no sense. Like, it's why I was tempted to go to the Kansas game at Sporting Park or, like, this game in Tampa Bay. Never been tempted to go to a Tampa Bay Rays game. I am now. I'm curious to watch this game in this random trip, this random, fall, essentially, or spring training facility. Next up on What's Trending, Lindsey Vonn says she'll return to Olympic training to try to compete in the 2026 Winter Olympics. That's after a 6-year hiatus from the sport.
40 years old by the time
40.
By the time the next Olympics comes around.
3-time medalist.
Yeah. It's quite
100+ events won in her career.
We'll see if she actually qualifies for the next Olympics. That's What's Trending here on Cody and Gold. Of course, huge game Sunday in Buffalo. You can hear the game on 96.5 The Fan. Earlier today, we went up to Buffalo to talk with Mike Schoop from WGR 550, our sister station, to find out exactly how they feel about the Chiefs. And basically, this is something we do every single year now. 5 straight years, Chiefs-Bills.
Here we go again. It's like a division rivalry almost with even higher stakes. I'm old enough to remember the Bills and Chiefs playing twice a year in the 80s because they both finished last in 5-team divisions, and that's how the schedule worked back then. I went to a game between these teams in 1986. So anyway, too long ago to talk about or care about. But, yeah, I mean, here we go again is right. And the likelihood of a playoff rematch really makes the importance of this game interesting to talk about.
Absolutely. The number 1 seed we'll get into as well. One thing we were discussing before we had you on was the stadium conversations here in Kansas City as it relates to the Chiefs and the Royals. This thing's been going on for a couple of years, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys have a new stadium that's already, 25% done or more or something like that. How did that all play out, and why is that stadium is outdoor, and how come no retractable roof?
mean, those are good questions, and the politics of it all, I don't know how many of those questions I could answer, but they figured out a way for most of the stadium to be public money, of course. Just what we all need in the world is more football stadiums that'll be used 10 times a year, and
They'll put some concerts there. Come on.
It's outdoors, though.
Not here. I mean, a couple, maybe, hopefully, but they wanted to keep the, quote, integrity of the Bills stadium experience. But there's a partial roof, like they're covering some of it, and it's supposed to be ready by week 1 of 26.
Okay.
So the Bills have the rest of this year. It's mostly up. I mean, it's kind of cool to look at. Every week you'll see on Sunday the networks show the progress of the stadium. So the Bills will play in their current stadium next year, and then they'll move.
When you look at what the Chiefs and Bills are, I guess that's what you said, hey, for the future potential matchup. Even in Buffalo, a team that is 3-1 against Kansas City in the regular season, you must admit that this game from if you beat the Chiefs doesn't say anything about what happens later.
I don't know. It depends what it looks like, right? I mean, if for some reason this game isn't close, then we'll have certain takeaways that we wouldn't otherwise have. The standings are the whole thing. Like, if the Bills win, they're one loss behind the Chiefs for the top seed, and they'll have beaten them, which makes that very much in play. The betting markets still don't think there's really that much of a chance anyway, the way it looks to me. Like, they still, the over-under on Kansas City is 14.5 with the schedule the Chiefs have, but you never know. There's so much of the season left. The Bills have to play this game like it means a lot. So, I mean, I would not fault them for that. And if they lose, then it's kind of over for the 1 seed, which makes it, for one thing, our job's interesting down the stretch. You'll have the undefeated chase. The Bills are almost a lock for the AFC East already. Mm-hmm. I mean, nobody else has even 4 wins in the division. The Bills have 8, and they've swept Miami. It would have to be the Bills. I mean, guys, if the Bills lost their next 4 games, Kansas City, San Francisco, Rams, Lions, they would still be the division favorite after that. So what we talk about, what they have to shoot for in that eventuality, we'll see if we get there. But if Buffalo wins the game, then they're going hard for the 1 seed, and with good reason.
The problem is if Buffalo loses the game, then the 1 seed's done. Like week 11 and it's done. The Chiefs are the 1 seed, right?
Right. I mean, 3 losses behind with the tiebreaker and Kansas City schedule. Then it becomes for the Chiefs a matter of going undefeated. This would have to be their hardest game left. They're underdogs. So I don't know. It's a question for you guys, like just how serious a thing that is. But it could be. It seems like it should be something that matters to teams.
No doubt. I think for us, it's been, hey, if they can get past this one, then I'll really start the undefeated conversation. Until then, it's a fun thing to look at, but you got to get through this one first. And along those same lines, then how confident are you guys in Buffalo in this Bills team this go around? If you compare it to the playoff matchup going in last year or the regular season game here at Arrowhead where you guys won, how would you rate the confidence compared to those?
Well, I think the fan base is different than I am on this one. What I tend to hear from analysts, I talked to Rob Gronkowski a couple of days ago, and name drop, sorry.
And slide that in there, no problem. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, Gronk. I call him Gronk.
They must hate him in Buffalo.
Not really. He's born here. So
okay.
He makes a point that a lot of people make, the fans like to make, which is it's more promising this year because this really is naming Diggs without saying his name, that there's less selfishness, that everybody's involved. It's more of a team than maybe it was in the past. I don't really go for that so much. It's true that Diggs' production late in seasons fell off. And so, I mean, in that Chief game, that last drive in the playoffs, Allen, I think, went 6 for 9 on that drive. He went 0 for 3 to Diggs. Like that, his misses, or maybe it was, at least to a point on that drive. Anyway, so he has had tough second halves the last 2 years, and they could be right that having a more balanced attack is better for them. I just tend to think I'd rather have the alpha. I'd rather have the guy that you have to double team like the Chiefs did in the playoffs, Hopkins. I'd rather have that. But it's good vibes with the Bills. I mean, they're 8-2. They've had injuries. They've gotten through it. The division is in shambles. So I think there's plenty of optimism overall, though, it's still, because of the history, it's muted. It's just not off the rails here for excitement until they beat this team in the playoffs. Not even Sunday. Like, the playoff script has to change, and then, I mean, the roof blows off this town. But because there have been these losses, I think everybody is kind of generally a little bit guarded.
When you look at what they're doing offensively, I guess I'll ask you, they're the only team in the NFL without a passing touchdown of 20 or more yards, which is weird for the Bills. Certainly a team that still gets the big play. Where are they offensively as far as, like, what do you think they're really good at still? And where do you think, like, we know with the Chiefs, you know better than us, where do they still need to be better on offense?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, Dalton Kincaid was kind of a first-round pick in 23, supposed to be this kind of seam stretcher type. That has just not happened. Like, his max, I think, in a game this year is 52 yards. Now he's injured, and his status is very much in doubt for this game. Amari Cooper was acquired. I mean, the Bills were winning, but they still went and did that because they were not getting, like you're saying, the air yards player, the deep threat. And he has barely played. In 4 weeks, he has 5 catches. He's missed the last 2 games. And with him, we're talking about pain tolerance, and there might be some tension when it comes to him at this point. And Keon Coleman is already out for this game. So what are they? They're Mac Hollins, Dawson Knox, Khalil Shakir, who's good for his 6 for 70 every week, never drops a ball, never scores. And then I guess Curtis Samuel. And really, where it starts is mostly James Cook. And I think for this game, what'll be an interesting clue, when the Bills have played Kansas City, always for high stakes, Josh Allen has run a lot, double digits. I think it's like 5 games in a row he's run, including playoffs, for at least 10 times. And that's something the Bills really wouldn't prefer to have happen. But this is maybe where we realize just how high they think the stakes are for this game if Allen runs a lot. You know, if he does, that tells you. If he doesn't, what is it? It's James Cook and, short passes.
When you look at defensively, this is, again, the outsider's perspective. I think they're significantly is relative. I do not think that this is nearly as good of a defense as they've had over the last 3 years. I think there's a drop-off in their level of play, and I think that happens a lot in defenses in the NFL. You see them every week. Is there a drop-off?
Slightly. I've been really impressed. I mean, maybe there is, but they got younger this year. The pass rush is working out. Rousseau has really been good. Von Miller is back. I think that's interesting if the Chiefs have trouble at the edges in this game. I mean, Mahomes always gets the ball out, but it hasn't been as easy this year, to say the least, maybe. I think they're vulnerable at linebacker. They won't get Matt Milano back for this game, but he might come back. Still, like what I see is when teams have success against their defense, they're throwing over the middle, they're running between the tackles, and I don't know, like Kansas City is Kansas City, but is that exactly? I mean, I don't know. Running Kareem Hunt doesn't worry me for this game at all. Like, they're so inefficient. The corners for the Bills, Douglas and Benford, have been great. And so, again, this is not like the perfect matchup in Buffalo's case for what they're facing here with edge wide receivers, boundary receivers. But they've been really strong there. And for the most part, otherwise, they've held up.
We were having a bigger picture conversation about Mahomes and Allen. I think these are number 1, number 2 quarterbacks in football. And a fun hypothetical, if Mahomes was in the NFC this entire time and Josh Allen was still in the AFC, what do you think the career accomplishments would be looking like for Allen? How many Super Bowls, MVPs. How many appearances? What do you think it would look like for Allen?
It would have to be better. I don't know if they would have made it or won yet. It's hard to say they would have won a Super Bowl if they've lost to this team in the playoffs, but maybe they would have gone. I think Lamar Jackson is on the same level. And so maybe it's him once, maybe it's Allen once, maybe it's Burrow once. He made it once, obviously. I think it's probably more like that. I think the MVP thing is really fascinating. Jackson, I thought there was no way he would win this year because he's got 2, and there's a legacy element to that vote. But he is like almost even money right now with the season. He's having the best season of his career. And you have him playing at Pittsburgh at 1, which that's a tough spot. And then these 2 guys at 425. It'll be interesting to see how the race maybe shakes up a little bit this week.
I'm with you. I think we were discussing this off air that if the Chiefs win, then obviously Mahomes for MVP, Andy for Coach of the Reader are alive. If they lose, I think both markets are dead for Mahomes and for Andy to win Coach of the Year.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, if Mahomes goes 22 touchdown passes and 16 picks, but they go 17-0, he wins.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
The MVP is always a top team. You know, Jackson won he got 49 out of 50 votes last year. He wasn't bad or anything, but Baltimore was much the best team all season. So, that was that. And I feel like, we talk about Allen for this. My problem with the idea going into the year of him winning is the Bills are going to have to win 13 games, and I just didn't see it for this team. But now they're 8-2, and that's very possible. So his chances are probably as good as ever.
Last question I have for you, Mike. At least on the other end, I think a lot of times in these big matchups, the one thing we forget, we talk about quarterbacks, defense, offense, stars, whatever, and we forget to talk about the coaches, the difference between. Where are you in Buffalo right now on the level of coach you guys think Sean McDermott is?
Well, he's done such a great job over the years. I mean, taking a team that had done nothing for so long to this level, he deserves more credit than I think he gets. He's never, by the way, in the Coach of the Year conversation. You can say what you want about that. But they've had significant changes to the roster this year. Veterans left defensively, like I put it earlier. I think they've held up fine. Injuries, too. I think he deserves much of the credit for that. And when it comes to Allen, there's really, I don't think, a lot between them, but he's done a very respectable job. He and Reed, of course, are linked back to Philadelphia, and so there's that history too. But, everybody here is jealous of what the Chiefs have with Mahomes and Reed because Reed is an offensive guy. And that's always the dilemma in Buffalo after these playoff seasons go away. And it's like, when are we going to admit, people say this, I don't really like to, when are we going to admit that the Bills have to have an offensive-minded head coach? If your coordinator really does a great job, he leaves.
Right.
And we'll see if that happens this year too. But that piece is significant in how people sort of interpret the jobs they do. But for what McDermott's value is in terms of how the defense plays and the, quote, culture of the whole thing here, he gets A's.
Hey, if and when Brian Daboll gets fired from the Giants and Joe Brady gets another job, you guys can just bring back Brian, right?
Problem solved.
I do not think that will happen.
That happened with Matt Nagy. It could happen.
Well, go back and look up the post-game handshake between the Bills and the Giants last year.
That's done, huh? That relationship is soured, you're telling me.
It looked like it.
All right, Mike. Appreciate it, man. It's been fun to talk. I'm sure we'll be checking in January.
Can't wait. I'm already ready for it.
So that was Mike Schoop at WGR 550 a little bit earlier on today. As we were listening to that, too, a little update out of Buffalo injury-wise for wide receiver Amari Cooper. He's acting like he's going to play on Sunday. Remember, Keon Coleman already out, so it could be Cooper, who has only played in a handful of games dealing with an injury. I would expect Cooper to play on Sunday.
If you can get back out on the field. And I know, they have a Minihue and Pacheco coming back. They can't get back on the field yet. Then get him back on the field. Especially if you're without Keon Coleman. Otherwise, your only real weapon in the passing game is Khalil Shakir, and you kind of limit yourself on what you can do offensively. He made it sound like he was going to come back, and I think if you were saying that on Thursday, you're playing on Sunday.
I agree. Yeah, well, he's also just missed multiple games, and just like Juju, it's like, hey, maybe you could have gone last week, but you slowly bring him along for this game. I mean, even more so for Buffalo, as Mike was laying out. They lose this one, they're suddenly 4 back with tiebreakers for the number 1 seed. The Bills would be.
No, it's a huge. I'm not even I'm trying not to even be hyperbolic. It's borderline impossible for the Chiefs not to be the 1 seed if they win this game on Sunday.
It'll be 10-0 and all the tiebreakers,
which is crazy because it's only week 11. But they would be 10-0. And they'd be 3 games up on every team, and they'd have the tiebreaker on at least 2 of those teams. So it would take the Steelers beating the Chiefs and finishing with a better record, or the Texans beating the Chiefs and finishing with a better record, when they already have 3 more losses than those teams. It requires them to be nearly perfect, and the Chiefs to play 500 or worse, essentially the rest of the way, for anyone in the AFC to catch them. That's why this game is not just massive for the normal reasons, but massive for so many more. The Chiefs in Week 11 of the NFL season can all but guarantee the number 1 seed in the NFL playoffs for a team that has had to play, half a season more's worth of games over the last 5 seasons. I mean, how many more games have they played than Buffalo, Cincinnati, the Ravens? 10? 8? I mean, by some teams, 10. By some, 5 or 6. They played more games than anyone. If you can get a couple of weeks off at the end of the season.
Yeah, it's not just a perfect season conversation if you win against Buffalo. It becomes how do you manage the rest of the way? And knowing that this is also a year where they have, 4 games in 17 days or whatever, right around Christmas and New Year's, Cleveland and Houston and Pittsburgh, how they navigate that becomes way more fascinating actually if they win. If they lose, well, then it might be games they have to have for seeding purposes. If they win, that game against the Texans, other than just a fun Stroud-Mahomes matchup, it really may not mean anything. The Texans
Steelers game,
might have their division locked up depending on if Anthony Richardson finds something out during the 2 weeks that he had off and now is back to being a starter for the Colts, and they can put some pressure on Houston. But if I'm not mistaken, the Colts already were swept this year by the Texans. So they would have to finish with more wins than the Texans. They can't win a tiebreaker.
No, they're just... Some of this, the AFC is the NFC. God knows. God knows who's going to be the number 1 seed. Who knows who the hell the playoff teams are going to be. Like, just kind of a mess over there. But on the AFC side, some of the other teams already eliminated themselves from the number 1 seed. I think the Texans already did that. I've already told you that I think, anyone in the AFC West fried. I think the only team remaining is Buffalo. I think the Ravens did it by not just losing to the Chiefs, but losing too many games after losing to the Chiefs. They've knocked themselves out of the race. It's just, right now, technically, I think it's just Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And Pittsburgh's schedule, I mean, unless they're really, truly the goods.
Yeah. I mean, if I told you the Chiefs lose on Sunday and the
Pittsburgh
Steelers beats Baltimore on Sunday, then it becomes a little more interesting. I don't think both are happening. Maybe one. Maybe the Chiefs lose to Buffalo. I don't think we're going to see Pittsburgh winning and the Chiefs losing this weekend. I like Baltimore quite a bit, actually, as a matter of fact, heading into this one. But you said it. They got every divisional game left, the Steelers do. Every single one. 2 against the Ravens and 2 against Cincinnati in particular. And the Browns one probably will sweep that. But
if the Chiefs win, and then it doesn't really matter if the Steelers win or lose, in my opinion. Like, they're not going undefeated the rest of the way. They're going to finish with more than 3 or 4 losses, Pittsburgh.
Thanks to Mike Schoop again for joining us up at WGR 550 in Buffalo. That's going to do it for us today. Tomorrow, you're back at it. I'll be out tomorrow. Sister's getting married this weekend. I'll be back on Monday. And game predictions up on Instagram and all our social media tomorrow if you're wanting. You'll do the game predictions, but I don't have time to do that. So
will you send me yours so
I will.
that the people can know?
Yeah, you can pass along the official word.
I don't think our audience will survive unless they know what your prediction is.
That's right. That's very true. All right, that does it for us. The Drive with C-Dot and Rob coming up next.
This is Cody and Gold on your home for Kansas City sports. 96.5, The Fan. Brought to you by Heartland Men's Health, the leader in men's sexual health. Thousands of men have been successfully treated for low T, ED, and more, all with discretion and compassion. Make your appointment at heartlandmenshealth.com.